Okay, this is how to export in Premiere Pro CC, and if we go to About Premiere Pro, it's 9.2 2015. So this has just changed recently. You highlight after you've finished your film edit, you highlight this window, go up to File, down to Export, and over to Media. You can see the shortcut is Apple M for Mac. Now these settings usually will match your sequence, but sometimes that changes. So what we want to do is you want to go up to Format and go down to H.264 because that is the setting that we're looking for to export in. Now your preset will change as soon as you change the stuff down here, so don't worry about that. If you click on it, there's lots of different presets to choose from. So at the moment, it just says match the source, which is your footage, your film footage, and high bit rate, which is not really what you want, but that will change as we go down. So what you can do if you want is you can match the source with a medium bit rate, but as soon as you change in here, everything's going to change anyway. The output name is what you want to click in here, and then you can change this bit here. Don't change after the dot because we want that information retained. Export video and export audio are both checked. This gives you a summary of what you're exporting in, which is interesting to look at in the future. Now down here, click Match Source so that it does match the footage that you've shot in. Then what you want to do is uncheck this here so that you can change this aspect here, and this just tells you the pixel width and the pixel height. Because this is clicked, then it is linked together, so as soon as you change one, the other one changes automatically. This will be different depending on what your camera is and what you've shot the footage in. So what you want to do is click in here, it says 960. If you divide it by 4, you'll reduce your footage down to 1/4 of the size, which is what we want. So in 960 divided by 4 is 240, push enter, and that changes the next one down. Now you can see here this has been shot in PAL progressive because it was shot in 720p and the frame rate is 25. So we'll be changing that in a minute. Over here we can see the source, which is the footage that you have shot, the edit, and then you can see the output, and you can see it's different. It's got quite pixelated in here, and that's just because we've reduced the size of the film down to a lot smaller, and these are pixels, so we're working with a lot smaller pixels. Now of course if you shrunk this down you'd be able to get the same clarity, because if you shrunk this down to 1/4 of the size it would look the same clarity as this source here, but it would be 1/4 of the size large, because that's just what we've done. We've basically made it 1/4 of the size. So uncheck this, and then when you change the frame rate you'll notice the TV standard will change. So we want to go to 12.5, which is half of 25, so that basically halves the frame rate. Uncheck this and put it back to PAL again, because that's what it was. Now it's decided to change the frame rate on its own, and the width and the height. So we had it down to 240, and it goes back to 180. So now we have it on PAL, which is what it was shot on, 240 by 180. And what you can do is you can check by looking at the source and looking at the framing around here, and then click on your output again to make sure, and then this way you can see whether there's black bars or no black bars, or whether it's viewable or not. So you have lost quite a bit of resolution in this, but we need to do that because you're editing your email and your films, and we need to have that quite small so that you can email. Now down here it says the estimated file size is 3 megabytes. That's pretty good, that's what we want. Another thing you could do to reduce the size is to go over to Audio and make sure that the audio format is AAC. Now after you've done that you can double check up here. Here is the size of the film, This is the frames per second, and all the rest is just a lot of stuff that you don't really need to know right now, otherwise it might be too much information. And then you go down here and click export, and the film will render out and give you an export.